Hey everybody, Mr. Gibbons and Jeremy back with you again on a chapter that we feel much better about than the last chapter.
A little more confidence.
Got out of that need territory that was risky. Now we're on exchanging feedback. So people smart skill number 4, exchanging feedback. The opening quote in the chapter on page 95 is, "Flatter me and I may not believe you. Criticize me and I may not like you. Ignore me and I may not forgive you. Encourage me and I will not forget you." I tend to be an encouraging human, and I will sometimes get students. A former student of mine named Haley comes to my mind who will say, "You say too many nice things." And I said to Haley, "What do you mean by that?" And she said, "Well, all the other directors I've had, have offered critiques, and you don't do that." I said, "Well, I think the research will say somewhere between 8 and 12 positive things for 1 negative."
Well, that's a pretty good estimate. I've kind of been similar in that I found where compliments get me further than criticism. But I found through management positions where you manage a large group of people, there are some of those out there, maybe not fair to put it in a percentage, but for the sake of argument, even if it's just 1 out of 10.
Sure.
Where encouragement is not what motivates them. And so, you can't assume that because you do better with encouragement, everyone does, because it's not the case.
I think that's true. I think there also comes, and in my job here at BB, there comes a point where you've given them every chance that there has been, and then there has to be consequences, right? I have to say, "I'm sorry, we've given this every possible chance, and that didn't make." And that's not very, I don't love giving that feedback, right?
No. Yeah.
I had a student in the spring who just had not thrived in 2 semesters here, and I had to say to him, "I think it might be time to take some time off and evaluate if this is indeed what you want me to do." In this very semester I'm in right now, I've got a student online who has already failed my online class once, and he texted me and said, "Can you catch me up?" Well, I mean, summer classes are like
Light speed.
4.5 weeks. They are light speed.
Yeah.
They are over like that. And I said, "Man, what are you doing in online education? You don't like it. That's not how you work." And so I do think different feedback works with different people. I will generally say I do try and frame it positively wherever possible, even if what I'm really offering is a critique, right? I mean, even if what I'm saying is, I need you to do more of X, I think is better than, "Man, that thing you did." Now, maybe you have to say that sometimes, and I get that, but I'd still try and frame it positively.
Well, I would always encourage supervisors that you can criticize in a positive way.
That's it. That's it.
And
100%.
It's certainly something that's within the realm of possibility. You may have to work a little harder to do it, but I think the results are a good payoff.
The chapter has kind of a case study in it with Maya and Kim, pages 96 through 97 there, who are sort of 2 different bosses. One is somebody who's not very feedback sensitive. That's Maya. She's a hard worker. She kind of expects everybody else to get that. I'm reminded of a guy in one of my churches once who had been married for like 57 years. I think this was probably not true, this is not true, but what he said was, Sonny said, "Well, I married Barbara 57 years ago, and I told her I loved her. How often does she need to hear it?" I am
Sorry.
I'm reasonably confident that Sonny was indeed playing about that, because this wonderful woman stayed with him for 57 years. But maybe that was just a testament to Barbara that
Could be the most tolerant woman
maybe
in history.
she's just the most patient woman ever. And when I come back to the text and I read about Maya, I think about Sonny. Kim in the story here is the opposite. She's a hairdresser, a stylist, and she's gonna continually try and receive feedback throughout? Do you like it? How is this for you? Those sorts of things. I have found that those things matter more than anything else. I guess you could call it the art of checking in to see. Jeremy's been in a number of my classes. There are mornings I come in, we have a little cafe that's just down the corner. There are mornings I come in and I see the zombie faces and I say, all rise. And they go, okay.
Gives me flashbacks.
And I go back and out here and I buy them coffee, and then we come back in and try again. And if it doesn't work the second time, then I send them on their way. I say bye-bye because today's not the day. I've gotten the feedback. The feedback is either because every other professor on campus has an exam scheduled for today or something that it's not going to get it. I could talk till I was blue in the face, and I could be as funny as I've ever been, and everyone's just going to give me that zombie sort of approach.
Which kind of goes back to, sorry, I'm still trying to figure out where Barbara's been all my life. Goes back to my nonverbal, what I harp on all the time. We're constantly sending and receiving feedback, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. You just described a perfect example. You walk in, you see faces, you're getting feedback from every single person in the room, whether they realize it or not, and you're able to receive that, adapt, and make a good judgment.
And do something because of that.
Right. Well, and that's, again, I think it's something we all do subconsciously. I used to describe one of my bosses as I was always in the office before him, and where my desk and through the doorway, I had just a hair of a split second view of him as he walked by, and I could tell what kind of day I was going to have.
Yeah, right.
In that
because
split second,
he
came in. Split second of feedback, and I would go, "Oh, great! Why didn't I call in sick or whatever?
Go to the lake today or something."
Again, we're receiving it every time you engage with someone, but even being people watchers like we are, you're getting it every single time you lay eyes on something. Your brain is generating a message.
I think a lot of my professor colleagues, especially you history people, you heard me, they teach to the bell. I mean, we don't actually have bells here at BB.
A lot of history
but if the class is from 10 to 10:50, they start at 10.
Lucky to get out of there at 10:52. I know this.
And I look out at the class, I walk through and they're glassy eyed, and I'm thinking, okay, you're putting out information, but is anybody picking up? And I think that's important, regardless of whether you're a teacher, any kind of oral communication of any kind, that there is this ongoing cyclical loop where you are giving your message, they're giving you feedback, you're responding to that.
I've waited 23 years for someone to say that there is going to be a 10-minute part of George Washington's life you're not going to be able to cover.
That's it.
In this semester.
That's it. That's it.
They do try. They do try.
I think the textbook does a very good job, starting on page 99, at looking at the idea of people with a high level, a solid or above average ability to communicate interpersonally are people that invite others to give them constructive feedback, and that they offer feedback that is constructive and enlightening. Nobody wants to be with Debbie Downer, ever.
No, ever.
Never.
And it's one of the truest statements in the world is misery loves company.
Absolutely.
Debbie Downer is looking for you.
Yes. And you won't be motivated by her, and you probably won't motivate her because she's not open to what you're doing. And
they are not open to constructive criticism.
They aren't.
In any way.
Now, if you're going to create a team, which we're so focused on, I think, in the business world today, everyone has to be committed to that ideal, and so many people are not. It just threatens my world. As a pastor, I have heard for 32 years, well, are you going to sanction that person's decision? Look what they're doing. And I think, I don't even sanction my own decisions. I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm not signing off on your life, Jeremy. I may or I may not offer feedback if we have that kind of relationship. I'm probably not going to jump in and offer feedback where it's not offered. And if I can't accept that feedback, if I can't receive it when it comes, then you're not going to be interested in receiving it from me.
I think it's a good lesson for any of the students in the class to understand that when it comes to where they go from here out into the business or corporate world, whatever the case, that the higher position, meaning like a supervisor, the more
right.
responsibility you get as an employee. If you're responsible for others than yourself, the expectations are going to be unrealistic from some people. They just are. I mean, not to say that's going to be everyone, but there's always going to be that one, and you see it as a pastor, you see it as a teacher. I certainly saw it as a police officer. I used to joke that, you know, the funniest thing in the world would happen, the biggest disaster in the world could happen on the south end of whatever jurisdiction you're in, and what's the person going to do? I mean, satellite falls out of the sky, they're going to call 911 and expect a cop to come deal with it. Well, what's he going to do?
Right.
But it doesn't matter. That's who they expect to come deal with it. And for supervisors of any field, I think there's a certain level of that expectation. And, you know, you got to be prepared for that. It's not something that you want to make the worst part of your day or your career. You just need to have that expectation yourself that there are going to be those people, and the skills in this book is generally geared toward more those people and how to deal with it without having such a negative effect than probably the other.
There's a section that begins on page 103 that I think is more important than some of the rest. One of my crucial jobs as a professor is to make others comfortable in my classroom. I am aware that when y'all walk in, I've got about a minute for you to make a snap judgment. Right? I mean, they might have been in my Rate My Professor page, they may have been wherever, but how I hold myself and the words that I say and the way that I bring those words across, that first minute or 2 minutes of that first class are imperative. And I think what I have learned, well, I say I've learned it, that would imply that I know this. Based on our discussion of the last chapter in terms of asserting needs, what I am finding is to make people comfortable, I have to be vulnerable about things I don't want to be vulnerable about in order to invite them to do that. As an acting professor, it's really hard to get close to certain roles, right? You have a long experience as a police officer. There are parts of that would be difficult for you to get next to in a role.
Certainly.
That would be hard. We have those experiences in life that we may have trauma involved in and different things. And so there is, that's gonna be hard for us to get up next to. I have to make that place comfortable. The only real rule I have for actors in my theatrical group is I'm probably only gonna get violently angry about one thing, and that's if someone shares something and you try and throw that up to them later. I don't.
Oh, so if someone puts that in their pocket to use for later, kind of against somebody.
I won't play.
Oh,
I won't play,
I
Jeremy.
would agree 100%.
That's over. If you get to play that one time, you may be absolutely 100% sure you will only play it one time.
Yeah, if you ask someone to open up and they do so for, you know, I don't want to get off on a rant, but yeah, for that to be used against them later, I would see red.
Can't do it. That's the only color I see.
100%.
Page 104 has some excellent questions or ideas. Maybe they're not questions. Expressions to use when requesting feedback. I'd like a suggestion about, there's a student in this class who's a colleague of mine, and I have asked her opinion. Tell me about this. When you see this or when this happens, what do you hear? I value her opinion. She's been in other classes of mine, and I'm working on this whole online education thing, right? This is I didn't do a whole lot of that before the pandemic. Now I'm doing more. I'm not sure how I'm doing with you fill in the blank. It invites that person to share, right? You're telling them I don't know everything.
I think two things need to be noted here when it comes to this. If you're asking for this type of feedback, two things. One, be prepared that you may have to ask twice because a person may not be comfortable sharing it with you. And especially if you do have to, in a sense, drag it out of that person, which is not necessarily what you need to do. That's just
Right.
a vague description. You need to be more receptive than probably what you want to be of the criticism. Because no one is scared
Certainly.
to tell you that you're doing great. I mean, you know, it's
Yeah.
just not, that's just
Yeah.
not happening. You know, we've given examples about what we deal with as parents. You know, this 3 days ago on my way home, something bothered my son, I could tell. We're actually driving on the interstate through BB when I finally say, "Son, anything bothering you?" And you know what he said? "No, I'm fine." It
It's
wasn't
not true.
So now I have a choice to make.
Right.
You know, I've got probably about 10 minutes before I hit my exit in Cabot. Do I try to
Right.
get
Do
this
I
out of him?
Drag
you
it
know,
out.
Or do I let it go? And I made a decision. This has been going on for a couple of days. And
Go.
so, you know, son, I can tell when something's wrong. You know, go through the same ordeal. He told me about it. Now, he was in tears before we got to that exit.
Right.
But he told me what was
Yeah.
wrong, what was bothering him.
Yeah.
Now, if he would have said, and this wasn't the case, thankfully, but if it had have been, you know, "Daddy, you're driving me crazy with such
Sure.
and such," or "Daddy, you know," if it would have been something about me, how more likely is he to open up to me the next time
He's
if
not.
I jump down his throat and
One
bite his
chance.
head off? That's it.
One chance. That's it.
Now, that criticism of me didn't come, but it could have, and I tell you it has in the past.
Sure.
And my reaction to that, whether it's my facial expression, my posture, my gestures, or my words, will decide if I ever get that honesty out of that person again. And that could be said of anybody.
I heard someone say last year, do you want my opinion or do you want affirmation?
Yeah, that's
What
a
are
good
you
way to
asking
put
me
it.
for? Are you asking me to pat you on the back or do you want to know what I really want to hear? 105 in your textbook talks about this 360-degree cycle of feedback, which I think is very difficult for us to achieve. There are usually blind spots in that. And as Jeremy has said, you know, if especially I think as a leader, as a spouse, as a parent,
Anyone responsible for anyone other
if
than
you're, if
themselves.
that's right,
It'd
if
be a
you're
multitude
responsible
of
for
roles.
someone and you invite feedback
Yeah.
and you punt it and you fail it, you better go back and apologize, or there's no chance they'll ever be real with you again, ever.
You have, as my grandpa used to say, screwed the pooch.
That's it. That's correct.
And it's going to be very hard to ever get back to a level you want to be.
On 113, it talks about 4 important aspects of exchanging feedback. Be specific. Be specific. I talked to my oral comm class when we're getting ready to do the interview. Don't say things like, "I work hard. I'm a hard worker. I bring a lot to the table." It's not specific. It means nothing. Everybody says words like that. What does it mean that you are a hard worker? Be specific. I am self-motivated. I don't need you to tell me what to do. Okay, that's a specific way of saying I'm a hard worker.
I'd go as far to add the worst news needs to be the most specific.
Yes, yes.
The more negative it is, or is likely to be taken, the more specific you have to be. This was true of giving death notifications.
Yes.
One of the worst jobs in the world you can
Yeah.
have, but police officers are doing it somewhere today. It's just part of the job. You'll
Yep.
never go to a person who is a next of kin, they just lost someone very close to them, and try to beat around the bush with, you don't use no language short of "they are dead." And that sounds coarse and cruel, but you have to be as specific as possible. You've got to get the worst news in the world across. You don't sugarcoat it. You don't, because you don't want the person
No.
that's getting this news to have questions. Yeah, as a man, I'm sure you've probably been involved in many of these situations.
Tons.
It just kind of hit me. Yeah, you know. You got to say it. And if you're giving someone any type of negative feedback, you got to just say it.
I have begged doctors in my congregations before, when you know it, say it.
Yes.
It doesn't do any good to act like this person's going to get better
You're
when
only making it worse.
when your instincts,
not.
the situation, the vitals, whatever it may be, says they're not, right? Second, be realistic. When you tell someone, if I tell a student in my class who has clinical anxiety to calm down, this is not a realistic expectation. If someone is failing my class with 1 week left and they say, "Can I make it up?" I say, "You could probably pass." That's not what they usually mean by make it up. They would still like to get an A. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
So be realistic, right? What is the realistic outcome? Be positive. If you can frame it positively, I would just argue that's the way to go.
You can almost always be positive.
Almost.
Even, I mean, you know, I don't know how you positively tell a loved one their loved one's dead. But other than that one situation, you can almost be positive about any other news you're delivering or
maybe you
message you're
suggest a different approach, an alternate behavior, something that rather than going, I don't like it when you do X, which feels like you're attacking me and my core being.
You can almost immediately follow that up with, I wish you did it as much as I love how you do. So,
right.
Just an example. You know,
Yeah.
that's, you know, kind of painting it with multi brushes. Here's a negative, but here's a positive too. So, you know, I don't know. Something like that can almost always occur.
And their final suggestion in the textbook is be tactful. My boss, Teddy L. Davis, says this: just be nice.
I can see you saying that too.
Just be nice. Just be nice. It takes it, you know, be tactful. Don't, you know, you could maybe say that more honestly, more brusquely. And I think we have given ourselves a bit of a problem in social media because I watch people that I know personally who would, Jeremy, they would never ever say it. If they're sitting right here like this, they'd never say it, but they feel free to say it through the anonymity of social media, right?
One of my 1,000 problems with social
Right.
media.
Yes.
You're getting a very distorted representation of someone's life. There's absolutely nothing real about what's on there. I mean, it is all distorted. Anyway, you know what kind of soapbox I get on about Facebook and so on.
Oh boy.
But yeah,
Instagram, Snapchat.
it's
at
like
all.
the reality show on the Soap
Yes.
Network or whatever there
Yes.
is out there. That is not reality. There's nothing reality about that. They're using their real names.
Yes.
I think social media is no different. That is not reality. You know, it may have the
Yeah.
real name on it. It may be a picture of that person, but it's a picture they went through about 20 of to edit and so on and so forth.
And I say, if they're sitting in that chair I've got my phone sitting on, they won't say it. 9 times out of 10, they won't say it.
No.
Or they'll be more tactful. They'll take a different tack with it every time. All right, so here's the assignment for the week. You have to be brave for this one, okay? It's on page 113 right here at the bottom. Make a list of people who don't give you feedback even though you would welcome it, and then invite them to give you feedback.
And if you run out of ink,
I understand. It's a bit of a scary assignment. I got it. But that's the assignment for the week. How do you, because what I think I give feedback, my second wife has a famous saying, stop speaking to me in metaphor. I don't really think I talk in metaphors that much, Jeremy, but she is
does.
absolutely confident that I talk in too many metaphors. And so what you think you're giving as feedback may not indeed be what you are giving. So take this moment in this class to figure out, how am I giving feedback? Invite other people's responses. Sunday night, I'll ask for another video from you on your findings on that. And
mind your reaction to those responses.
good
If you
call.
want
Good
it
call.
honest.
If
You want it
you,
honest.
yeah, maybe you better get
Prepared
that.
for the worst.
Maybe you better get that in writing so your face doesn't give you away.
Practice in the mirror.
All right, y'all have a good week, and Jeremy and I'll see you next week.